Let's talk about all things seed snail rolls. I like to call them seed rolls. I've decided to start probably 95% of my garden with the seed snail rolls this year. I did quite a bit of this last year and I've learned a lot. I want to answer some of the most asked questions, go over the pros and cons, show you how I do it and what I've learned from doing it over the last year. Question number one, how much soil and what kind of soil? I like to use just a multi-purpose potting mix. That way it has already some nutrients in it. Now I usually use an organic potting mix, but I ran out. This is called Pro Mix, but it has a great texture and I really do like it. I like to put it on pretty thick. I put it on probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick, and you want to press it down, compact it really well and firm. And then you want to pat in, I'm breaking up any lumps, and you want to pat those edges in really firm and pat the soil down as well, especially on what is going to be the bottom. You can always add some in on top after you roll it. So then we're going to roll it up. We're going to worry about patting in that bottom and just begin to roll. Don't worry if some of it falls out, and you're wanting to do it firmly, but you're not pressing down really hard. If you have too much at the end, just kind of pull it out and then pull that up, and then we're going to tape it shut. Some people will use rubber bands. I started off by tying these off, but I found this painter's tape is super easy and it holds up pretty well. And now you can just tap everything in, decide if you need to add any. Don't worry about what you're going to add when you plant your seeds. We'll top that off with some seed starting mix, and I'll show you how we plant the seeds here in a minute. And you can see it's real firm, and I still have room for the seeds. I want to show you again real quick how you firmly do it. Don't try to press really hard as you roll, or all the soil will just kind of push out the other end. So we're just firm, but we're not pushing down. See, we're not pushing real hard. We're just gently but firmly rolling. And after a few, you'll get the hang of it. And you can see I have a nice amount in there. It's not super thin. And that gives us enough room so that our seeds can be planted and have room to grow. Another very popular question was, can I go ahead and plant the seeds before I roll up the roll? And I would not recommend that. One of the reasons is, as you saw, as you roll it, the soil displaces and moves around, and so would your seeds. So I'll show you here in a second how we plant them and a way you can ensure that your seeds are all uniform and planted properly. A huge question asked is, what material do I use? Well, here's some different things that you can use. A popular item people like to use is a polystyrene that's used in construction when they put in windowsills, and you can get this at Lowe's, Home Depot, anywhere where they sell construction thingies. But I prefer to use bubble wrap. This is what I used because I had some on hand and it has worked really well for me. And you can see this is what I used last year and I'm reusing it again. And I actually reused this multiple times throughout the planting season last year. Also, I found anything much thinner doesn't hold up as well. And I have a video on that as well that I will link at the end of this. I also save envelopes that you get from Amazon, and I just cut the sides. And here's an example of this is pretty tall. I won't use it that tall. I'll cut some of it off. I could even cut this in half and end up with 2 rolls at about 3 inches tall. I might. Another big question asked is, how tall or deep does the roll need to be? Well, that just depends. Anywhere from like 3 to 6 inches is plenty. Now let's look at how easy it is to plant the seeds in the seed roll. I will plant multiple varieties in one roll, and I just add the label where one starts and ends, and that way I can tell what I've got where. So I'm going to plant some pepper seeds here, and I'm going to plant one variety in one part of the roll. And I'm sowing pretty heavy because these are home saved seeds, and I don't know how well they'll germinate. So just trying to play it safe. Also, you want to try to put like varieties in the same row because that will germinate at the similar time. I'll show you here in a minute what happened to me. But I just placed these in here, and we're going to come over with some seed starting mix and just top them off. That way it's lighter and fluffier, and the seeds can penetrate through the seed starting mix super easy, yet the roots have the potting mix down deep that they can get nutrients from as they grow. Now you can see here that I've got some that have started and some that have not. That's because I did not pay attention to how many days it took the seeds to germinate and plant like ones together. But that's no big deal, we'll figure it out. Also, if you have seeds that are slightly bigger and have to be planted a little deeper, just poke them in with your finger, and then you come along and top them off the exact same way. Then we're going to spray the tops of the seed starting mix, get everything really moist. I didn't mention earlier, but I started with a damp, moist soil, so everything's good and moist, and we can bottom water from then on out. But until the seeds germinate, keep them moist on top by just spraying them or watering from the top. And you can still place a plastic dome on top until they germinate. And also, if I'm growing something like these little cabbages or lettuce, I don't want something that's 6-8 inches tall. So I plant things like cabbages, lettuce, some herbs in the shorter ones that are about 3.5 inches. You can see they're doing great, and they'll get nice long roots too. Very hot topic is the use of plastic. I've addressed this in multiple videos, but I have a video that's specifically on the pros and cons of the paper versus plastic, so I'll link that in the description, plus put it at the end of this video. So feel free to go check that out so you can decide what works for you. I went through the comments of every seed snail roll video that I could find, so hopefully I've got all the questions answered, and if not, ask me below in the comments and I'll try to answer it. One of the questions was, can I cut the roots off before planting? Well, I would recommend that you don't. It's a method that gardeners use, and it's called root training, and it's a whole process you go through, and the concept of the root training is you want to have a really long, strong root structure. Well, the seed roll does it naturally. As you can see, more Amazon wrapper. For instance, these cannot go out. This is a hibiscus, and it can't go out until there is absolutely no threat of cool weather. It's in the okra family, and it wants everything to be really warm. So I planted this way too early. I'd never planted these before, and they need a long growing season, and I got really excited, and I talked about these in my vitamin C video, and I went ahead and planted them, hoping to give them enough time to get a good start before I planted them out. That probably wasn't necessary, but I have a solution for that, and I'll show you that here. Also, you can see I planted 4 of these in a larger pot that they'll be able to stay in until I plant them out. And the size difference in the plant is slightly larger. The stem is slightly thicker, but for the amount of space that it saves, I'm willing to. It's not a big enough difference. So we'll see how they do. The tests keep going. So stick with me. We'll be following this through the summer. I decided to go ahead and separate these into 2 rolls. They're looking pretty good, but since they have to wait a while, I thought it would benefit them more. Plus, it's a good opportunity to show you. So instead of taking these and separating them into individual pots, I'm going to separate them into 2 separate rolls. And it's a little bit different than up potting. They need a little more room than just a little more soil. I'll show you how to up pot here in just a second. Well, up roll. So I'm just going to gently separate every one of these and leave the soil on some of them, and some of them I'll have to take and separate them from the soil. But you just do it real gently, and we're going to get them divided, and then we're going to start getting them into the 2 rolls. Now, just like we did earlier, we're going to start with some damp soil, and we're going to pack it in really good. And we're going to get it almost to the end, and just tamp everything down real good. Then we're going to start adding, and I'm going to evenly space them. I'm going to have 5 in one roll and 6 in the other. So if you have thick soil like that, you can just make a little divot in there and pop it in. Then we're just going to get them all in and top them off with a little bit of soil. Then we'll get them rolled up. And again, we're firmly but gently rolling. You don't want to squish everything all out the other end. Now sometimes you have to wipe off the rolls because I get dirt all over them and you want the tape to be able to stick. Then you just tape them up. And after you get them all upright, tap around, get everything firmly in, and add any more soil at this point if you need to. And there you go. I have 11 plants, and they're going to take up so little space, and they'll start to thrive. So that's how you take care of something that needs some extra room to grow. But if you've got something that just needs a little extra room, we're going to show you how to up pot. I have some artichokes here, and they just need a little more time and a little extra soil to get them until they're ready to plant out. So what I'm going to do is just unroll them, and we're going to take a look at everything. Everything looks really good. Nice root structures forming. Oh, oops. It survived. They're pretty tough. So I'm just going to layer some fresh potting mix on top so that they can get a little extra room for more roots and more nutrients. And we're going to roll them back up. Now, if you find you need to scooch something down, just scooch them down, no problem. And roll them back up, and you're good to go. And these shouldn't need anything else until they're ready to plant out. But if they do, we know what to do. Super easy, and this applies to anything. Just tamp everything back down real good in case you disrupted the soil. Add any if you need to. And you can see they are thriving. There's 8 artichokes in here, and they're doing really well. They have a nice root structure. And if by some chance they need a little more room, we can make 2 separate rolls out of this and give each of the plants a little more room. And that is still saving space than if I had 8 4-inch pots holding these artichokes. Saving lots of room. How do I fertilize? I mix this half strength. It calls for a tablespoon per gallon, and I use a half a tablespoon. Well, actually, I use the cap and guess, but I mix it about half strength. So that's how I use the fertilizer. I just use a diluted fertilizer, and if I notice they look like they need a little extra, I just mix it up a little stronger. You do not use that when you first start your seeds. You just use that after they start to grow and get their true leaves on. Hopefully, we are going to pump out a lot of vegetables on 3 shelves. Now I may have to add another one here or there, but the plan is these are on the heat mats. When they start to sprout, I'll move them up here so they can start to grow. We'll move those lights down. They can adjust as the plants grow, and we'll start some more. And then we have another shelf to move as we get more. Now this already had some onions and some cabbages that have already gone outside. That's another reason that this method is really good. Like I said, this is not my idea. I got this from a lady on Instagram. Her name is Fertilizing, so go check her out. She has a really lovely Instagram. Now she has a greenhouse, so there's some things that I may have to adapt by doing them here indoors. Now one of the things she does is she will take the rolls and put them in soil, and that way the roots are in contact in the soil until she's ready to plant them out. Now that is how I've done the onions. When I needed a little extra space, I was able to move the onions outside. It's a work in progress and we're all learning. Now we may decide this is the pits and we don't want to do it next year, but I'm all in. Now we'll go outside and take a look at those onions and how they fared. We've had some pretty cold nights since I've moved them out, but it's cleared me up a lot of space. So since I don't have a greenhouse and I needed to clear out some space, the cabbages and the onions can take the cold temps. So I'm just going to, like Farida did, I'm going to dig a little hole and submerge these about halfway down. And I've put them all close together so that I can cover them if the temps get too cold. And we're going to get these in the ground really soon. So that's worked out really good for me. So we've got some raised beds that we're going to plant the onions in. So this week we're going to get those filled, the onions planted. I want to ask y'all to come along with me for that. I thank y'all so much. I hope you got some answers to any questions you may have had. And I really thank you all so much for hanging out with me. My name's Loanna, and this is A Little Bit of Homestead.